Respect isn't given to the easily read. What if the less you show, the more they respect you? What if silence doesn't make you weak? It makes you unreadable. In a world obsessed with constant expression, where everyone posts, explains, reacts, and reveals, there's one kind of man who always earns quiet respect, the one they can't quite figure out, the one who speaks less but carries weight, the one who moves with purpose, but never explains himself. And no, mysterious doesn't mean cold, it doesn't mean distant, it means deliberate. It means knowing exactly what to show and what to never give away. Today, we're not talking about hiding, we're talking about controlling the story, your story, and once you do that, you don't need to ask for respect, they'll give it to you. The man who says less but commands more. Think about the last time you walked into a room and one man stood out. He wasn't the loudest, he wasn't trying to be noticed. In fact, he said almost nothing, but somehow everyone looked his way, everyone adjusted around him, and when he finally did speak, people leaned in. That's not charisma, that's not charm, that's control. Not control over others, but control over himself. Because when a man doesn't need to explain, when he's not in a rush to be liked or understood, when he moves like he knows something you don't, that's when respect follows him. We've been taught that respect is earned through performance. Be confident, be social, be visible. But the men who are truly respected, they don't perform, they withhold, they hold something back. Not because they're hiding, but because they're selective. And that selectiveness, it creates tension, mystery, curiosity, power. So today, we're diving into the psychology of mystery, why the most unreadable man in the room often becomes the most unforgettable, and more importantly, how you can become that man. Let's start with the first principle. Not being fully known is exactly what makes you impossible to forget. Strategy 1. The power of not being fully known. Respect begins where full access ends. Let me tell you a quick story. A man walks into the same cafe every morning, same seat, same drink, same silence. He's polite, but brief, always in control of his words, never rude, but never overly open. Over time, people begin to wonder, what does he do? Why is he always alone? What's his story? And here's the kicker, he never answers directly. He just gives a small smile and says, not everything needs to be told. Now, here's what happens. People lean in. They guess. They assume. And eventually, they respect. Not because they know him, but because they can't fully read him. That's the psychology behind this strategy. The human brain fills in gaps, and when someone doesn't reveal too much, our minds inflate their significance. We assign meaning. We project depth. We assume strength. Because mystery isn't emptiness, it's intention. So what does that mean for you? It means you don't have to say everything. You don't have to explain your every move. You don't need to be transparent to be respected. You just need to leave a little space. Let people wonder what you're thinking. Let them feel the edges of your silence. Here's how to start. When someone asks a personal question, answer just enough, not everything. When you share something about yourself, leave the next line unsaid. Let it hang. And most importantly, resist the urge to correct their assumptions. Let them imagine what they want, because what they don't know often carries more power than what they do. And once you've trained yourself to not overshare, the next move is learning how to let silence do the talking. Let's talk about that. Strategy 2. Controlled silence. When saying nothing says everything. The most disarming thing you can do in a loud world is nothing. There's a moment most people miss. That moment, right after someone challenges you, provokes you, or pushes for a reaction. Most people? They jump in, they defend, they explain, they fill the space with noise, just to make it feel safe. But the mysterious man, he holds the pause, he lets the moment breathe, and in doing that, he shifts the power. Let me give you an example. Two men are in a meeting. One raises his voice trying to make a point. The other sits still, doesn't react, and just watches, calm, focused, unreadable. Guess which one ends up holding the room? Not the louder one, the quieter one. Because silence, when used intentionally, feels heavier than volume. It forces people to second-guess themselves. It turns attention back on them. And most importantly, it shows you don't need to win the noise. Controlled silence says, I don't chase your energy, I control mine. How to use this in real life? When asked a difficult question, pause before you answer. Let it hang. When someone tries to bait you emotionally, look, breathe, say nothing. When in doubt, hold the silence longer than feels comfortable. That's when the shift happens. Because people expect reactions. They expect you to fill in the gaps. But when you don't, they lean in, they wonder, they feel your presence without you having to force it. You don't have to prove your power with volume. You prove it by how calmly you refuse to play their game. And when you combine silence with the ability to control what you feel, and when you show it, you become unreadable. Let's talk about that next. Strategy 3. Emotional withholding. Don't react the way they expect you to. If they can predict your emotions, they can control your behavior. Let's break this down. Most people are emotionally readable. You compliment them, they light up. You criticize them, they get defensive. You ignore them, they chase you. And it's not just obvious, it's dangerous. Because when people know your emotional triggers, they don't have to overpower you. They just have to push the right button. That's where emotional withholding comes in. It doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means choosing when, how, and if you respond emotionally. It's about keeping your internal state yours, not a public display others can manipulate. A man is publicly insulted, sarcasm, eye rolls, the whole thing. Everyone turns to see how he'll react. But he doesn't flinch. No anger, no forced smile. He just looks steady. Then he calmly says, "Are you finished?" And just like that, the power dynamic flips. Because when someone can't get a rise out of you, they lose control. And they know it. Here's how to practice emotional withholding. Flatten your response. Don't over-celebrate praise. And don't visibly shrink at criticism. Stay centered. Give neutral reactions where others expect spikes. That moment someone's expecting you to get angry. Don't. Let your pause confuse them. Delay feedback. You don't owe anyone a real-time emotional response. Let them sit in their own energy. Because the minute you stop reacting on cue, you stop being predictable. And what people can't predict, they respect. Mystery isn't just in what you hide. It's in what you don't give away for free. And now that you've learned how to control your emotional reveals, let's talk about another layer of mystery. Not just what you don't show, but what you strategically leave out. Let's go there. Strategy 4. Selective Disclosure. Know what to share, know what to keep. The most respected men don't hide everything. They just don't share what hasn't earned its place. Here's a hard truth. People aren't overwhelmed by too little information. They're overwhelmed by too much access. Oversharing has become a social default. We treat transparency like virtue. We think that the more others know about us, the closer we become. But closeness doesn't equal respect. In fact, The more people feel they know every detail about you, the less they respect your boundaries. Now contrast that with the man who speaks intentionally, who gives you just enough to follow, but never enough to fully define him. He shares what's necessary, he keeps what's sacred, not because he's secretive, but because he understands this. What's unspoken holds value, and what's rare earns weight. There's a guy everyone works with. He's professional, clear, cordial. People like him, but they don't know much about him, where he goes after work, who he really trusts, what drives him underneath. And because of that, they respect him more. Why? Because he controls his own narrative. He's not performing mystery, he's protecting his center. Here's how to apply selective disclosure. Practice the one layer back rule. When someone asks about your life, give one clean answer, but hold the deeper layer. The meaning, the why, keep that yours. Avoid emotional dumping. Don't tell everyone everything about your bad day, your fears, or your plans. Keep some weight internal. It builds quiet strength. Let people earn access. Your story isn't a buffet, it's a vault, and not everyone gets the key. Because when you share everything with everyone, you train them to expect all of you, without earning any of it. The man who guards his story, guards his energy, and that brings us to the most subtle but most intimidating layer of mystery. How you show up in a room, not what you say, not what you hide, but the energy you create just by being there. Let's talk about that next. Strategy 5. Ambiguity in presence. How to let people feel you without fully reading. You don't have to say a word for people to feel your presence. But here's where it gets interesting. You want them to feel you, without ever being able to fully define you. That's ambiguity in presence. It's the space between confidence and silence, between awareness and aloofness. It's when you're completely grounded, but no one can quite figure out your angle. Here's the difference. A man walks into the room, clearly trying to be liked. He smiles quickly, leans in, fills the air with noise. People respond, but not out of respect, out of reflex. Then another man enters, still, relaxed, unrushed. He speaks only when necessary. When he does, it's slow, deliberate, and then he stops. No filler, no self-promotion, no rush to explain himself. People notice, not because he tried, but because they can't quite read him, and the human mind hates what it can't read. So it starts to assume, to imagine, to project depth, intelligence, strength. That's the paradox of ambiguity. The less you define yourself, the more power people assign to you. How do you embody this? Control your micro-reactions. When you're amused, don't laugh too quickly. When you're annoyed, don't flinch. Let your energy speak, not your face. Don't over-clarify your words. Say what you mean, then stop. Let them interpret. Let the silence echo. Slow your tempo. Walk slightly slower. Speak half a beat beneath the room. That stillness creates an invisible frame around you, because the moment they feel your presence but can't explain why it affects them, that's when you own the room. The most powerful presence is the one they feel long after you've left and still don't understand. You've now learned the 5 core strategies of being mysterious, without trying to be mysterious. But let's bring it all together and talk about why this isn't about image. It's about power without noise. Let's close this out. They respect what they can't fully understand. So what did we just walk through? Not tricks, not fake mystery, not playing games. We walked through 5 quiet strategies that change how people experience you. You reveal less because you don't need to be understood. You use silence because it speaks louder than performance. You withhold emotion because calm is your default, not reaction. You control what you disclose because privacy is your power, and you carry ambiguity because clarity makes you likable. But mystery makes you respected. In a world where everyone overshares, overreacts, and overexplains, you don't need to do more. You need to hold more. Hold your words, hold your emotions, hold your rhythm, hold your energy, because when people can't quite figure you out, they watch you more closely, they speak to you more carefully, they listen to you more intently. The mysterious man doesn't ask for space. He creates it by not giving everything away. And that space you create, it becomes your edge, your gravity, your quiet dominance. Become the man who doesn't beg for respect. He embodies it, if you're ready to go even deeper. Watch next. How to become intimidating without saying a word. It's not just about mystery, it's about presence, about silence, about how to walk into a room and never have to say, "Look at me," because the right kind of presence doesn't speak. It bends the room around you. I'll see you there.